Hi everybody, my name is Don Boyles, and I worked at WKY TV from about 1955 to 1961. Those were the glory years at the station, and that was a wonderful place to experience television because it had everything. I was actually hired at WKY by Norm Bagwell. Now, I'm not sure the circumstances of that. I would have to research that a little bit, but perhaps Mary Alice would remember the pecking structure there at the station. But anyway, Norm Bagwell hired me, and the day he hired me, he said, "Boyles, I'm going to hire you because you're spending more time out here than you are at home, and I'm tired of you. So you can report for work," and gave me the date. By the way, I started on Labor Day, Monday, 1955. I was to come in at 9 o'clock. I got there at 7, and I reported to Pete Richmond and Arnold Clanahan. That was a treat. I was so excited I couldn't stand it. So I go rushing into the building. There's Pete and Arnold, and they're saying, "Okay, slow down, Don. What we're going to do here is we're going to go up to Britain and have some breakfast." Listen, what? Listen, we're going to have some breakfast, and then we'll come back and do. This is a holiday. So my first official duty at WKY TV was go to breakfast with Pete and Arnold Clanahan. I started my training in September, and like I had said before, I was truly excited to be there. And I was looking forward to the time when I would get to really do something. So late in September, my first duty after I'd been talked to, shown the building, the backstage area, and the sets and that sort of thing. My first time with a camera was the noon news with Ernie Schultz. And my duty was simply take that camera, and I was going to have a shot of a logo, and then I would pan to the left and dolly back, and there you would see Ernie sitting and ready for the news. I was so nervous that by the time I pulled it back and stopped the camera, I had to lock it in. I was shaking so bad. I never lost that excitement. The station was exciting. You could feel the energy in the building with these crazy people that I learned to love and appreciate. I had no idea that I had another career coming that was going to be over 40 years, but it was going to be in radio. So as I was growing in television and meeting the people and being shared their knowledge of the business with me, it was building my repertoire for a future business. And I have to go back to space and time at this point to say that looking at the management level of the station, and I'm going to start with E.K. Gaylord, I would say that probably Mr. Gaylord was a genius. In fact, I know that he was. For someone to have the concept to build a television station in the early 50s, late 40s, and decide to build a Hollywood soundstage with 2 gigantic studios and do portrait lighting, have a grid system, and being this far ahead of television at that point, they had to be a genius. And I think Mr. Gaylord surrounded himself with some very fantastic people in his management staff of the TV station. They had the vision necessary to build a television station way beyond its time, and something very special in the Southwest. In fact, the station was visited on a regular basis, not only from New York and the the executives with RCA, but we had guests that came from around the world. We had people from England, from Mexico that would come up and study with us. And it just took a genius for this to work and the people to do it. There's some names that just pop out that really are outstanding and people that I've respected and was so grateful that I got to meet. P.A. Sugg, Hoyt Andres, obviously Norm Bagwell, who became the manager, Joe Jerkins, Leland Banton, Doyle Glazier, Jack Lovell, Lee Allen Smith. These are just a few of the names that crossed my path, and I just am so blessed that I had the opportunity to see these people and talk to them. There were so many things going on at the television station. There was always something happening. I didn't participate, but there was, in Studio C, they did a lot of medical work. I did work on a medical event. They did a complete extraction of all the teeth of a patient, and we televised it, and I ran camera on it, and I got a close-up so close that I could frame a tooth. And we could see the extraction, and then we could see the stitches, the repair work on the gums. And this was just one of the many things that happened at the station constantly. And the people that were involved in it, the great engineers that we had, and there was a boatload of them. All of these people, and I guess the point I'm getting to right now is the fact that that station was blessed with such great people, and the station grew to a reputation in not only the Southwest, but in the continental United States as being a premier NBC affiliate with the quality of the staff that could go to any network station. And I was a part of it, a very small part, but I got to be there. And again, I go back to the people. The people made it happen. Speaking of people, I miss Imogene. Imogene was in the kitchen. Imogene did a great job, and she was such a blessing to be in our lunchroom, and we all enjoyed her. God bless you. Other people that I mentioned, engineers, Willard Hines, and I can't, who can miss Gene Schaus and Lester Tucker, Aaron Britton, what a genius. Ken Copeland, crazy man, did it and enjoyed it. At the time that I was there, the directing staff was Billy Nix and Bob Rodkey, Harry Apel, George Donnelly, and Don Garrettson. That was the main staff, and they were good. They really made the shows work. On the talent side, the talent was just unbelievable. And one of the talents that I really did admire was Tom Paxton. Now I know that there's an issue there, but by the same token, Paxton was a real talent. You could never catch him off. He could ad-lib with the greatest, and his show was network quality. Paxton was really a talent. How about Steve Powell? Oh my gosh. Hy Roberts, John DeRemus, Bill Fountain, Chris Daniels, and of course Chuck Boyles, my brother, who did a show called Sheriff Bob. Wakefield Holly. Now there's an announcer's announcer. He was great. And Danny. Danny was one of those unique talents that just we were blessed with. He could do anything. Okay, now we come back to the station. Foreman Scotty, Steve Powell. One of the great children's shows was Foreman Scotty's Circle 4 Ranch, and of course having the live kids, and that was always a fun thing. And then they developed. I think Steve worked with Doyle Glazier, and Doyle was the art director for the station, and I think they came up with the Golden Horseshoe Prize that the Lasso would give to the child of the day on the station, and that became an extremely popular part of that program. But Steve expanded the program, particularly the live portion with the children. He became good friends with Bob Jenny, who was the curator at the zoo. Bob Jenny would bring out all kinds of animals to the station and show them to the kids and tell about it, and he was a great teacher. One of the things that happened to me was before one of the shows, I was in Studio C pre-lighting a set for another program, and I had a white schmuck on to keep the dust off because I was going to climb all over the grid in lighting this set. Both the back doors were open, and Bob brought a lion in, a young lioness, probably a 150-pounder, came in, and I was standing I just came down off the ladder, moving some lights, and I saw them coming in from the back. And here's Bob Jenny with this lioness on a leash, and I looked at the lion looked at me and broke the leash away from Bob Jenny and was coming straight at me. And I thought, this is crazy, and he's not stopping. I go up the ladder, and this lioness comes up the ladder after me, and I have no place to go except to the top, and the lioness was coming up. Just as she was about to feed on my foot, they grabbed her by the collar and drug her off the ladder and screamed at me, "Get out of there as quick as you can." And I climbed down and got out of there. It later turned out that the lioness had just come from the vet, and the vet had a white schmuck on, and the vet gave her a series of shots that she hated, and that lion was going to have my foot. I was so thankful that Bob could get that lioness off of me. Anyway, we didn't have another lion there for a while. When I came on board, and I told you that I met with Pete Richmond and Arnold Clanahan my first day, they were members of the stage crew, and I was to be a member there with them. And the stage crew was an entity unto itself. Some of the craziest, most talented people that I've ever had the chance to be around, and I remember them so well with Pete and L.W. Scott, Jay Spivey. Jay was hired about 2 weeks after me. We kind of had a thing that we would try each other and try to outdo, and we did that for a while, but Jay always won, so I quit trying. Ron King, Kenny Harris, Art Minnick, Monty Mann, Larry Batten, Ray Murdoch, Ronnie Atkins, and who could forget Dick Crosley. Dick was a wild little crazy guy, and Dick and I got to be on the country social a couple of times, singing a country song, the two of us, and we were just terrible, but we were so bad it was good. And he was a talent and a good singer himself. And he did some singing on Tom Paxton's show. So you had a crew that was versatile, that did everything, and you didn't have to go very far to get a piece of talent. I moved from the stage crew after a few years, moved into projection, which that was kind of the thing that you did. You would grow. The lighting was one, and so I moved into projection, and that was a real test for me. the dexterity you needed to do the things in projection. I was okay, and I did as the best I could. I lost one commercial. It was an 8-second P. Lorillard cigarette spot. I lost the loop, and on the projector there is a loop that's part of the mechanism, and there's only one quick fix, but on an 8-second spot you don't have time for that, and you simply pull the film down and it writes itself. Well, I lost that P. Lorillard spot, and to my knowledge that's the only thing I lost in projection. However, I did have one interesting thing happen in projection. Perry Como's show was on Saturday evening, and he was sponsored by Kleenex. And one of the spots at one Saturday, we were to make a special feed to another district, and we were going to feed a special commercial that Perry Como would intro. He would simply say from his show, and now here is a the language was, here's an announcement from our sponsor, Kleenex. And then I would roll the film. The network would be dropped. The telephone company would take our feed and feed it to the West Coast. And so the first night, here it is. I'm ready to go. I've got it loaded in projection, and Perry Como is on, and has done a number or two. And he starts to ad-lib. And they cut him, and they drop the network and drop to us. I didn't roll the film. I didn't have the cue line. We'll be back in just a minute, but first here's a word from Kleenex. Well, the phone started ringing, and I called at that time, Jim Terrell. We called and said to Jim, he was the national sales manager, that we didn't get the feed done we were supposed to because Perry Como didn't give us the cue line, and Boyles didn't roll it. And Jim Terrell said, good, that'll teach him. Next Saturday, same setup, same thing. Here we are again. We're going to feed this spot. Well, Perry Como comes and he does his stuff, and then he comes out and he goes this to the camera, over here. He said, no, come here. He was saying he had the cue card boy bring in the cue card, and he takes it from him and turns it around and does this. We'll be back in a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor, Kleenex. Bang! They drop to us, I roll the film, we get the tape, we get the commercial run. And it was absolutely hysterical. We had the opportunity to do the Today Show for a week here in Oklahoma City. It was the bicentennial of Oklahoma, and the whole Today Show came to the fairgrounds. Dave Garraway, Jack Lescooley. They didn't bring the monkey. I'm trying to think of the singer's name, and I will. But anyway, we did the Today Show live for a week. We worked, you can't imagine the hours and the camera locations and all that we did. We started the first feed was I think at 4:30 Central Time, maybe in 5:30, and we had all these locations and our directors, and we had probably 4 to 5 cameras on location at the fairgrounds. It was a great week, but we were really taken with the amount of hours we had to spend and planning and all the other things. One of the great experiences I had at WKY television, there were so many, and I had so many good friends there, and we got to see so many stars. They were there. This is a place that you would come to be on the air for your promotions, for the things that you're doing. So it was not unusual to see a star at the studio. One of the programs that I enjoyed so much was Bud Wilkinson's TV show. And I volunteered to do his show because Bud liked to have the crew, the stage crew, the same for as long as he could. And that because they would get used to how he does it and how he wanted it. He was a stickler for details. So I agreed to do the show, and they said it was a 3-year deal, 3-year commitment. This meant during the football season, every Sunday for the next 3 years, you're taken. You're going to be busy. And I did it. I got to do the show for 3 years. It was an experience that I totally enjoyed. And because of that, being exposed to that later in life, and I'll just jump ahead here just for a second, because of my experience with being on Bud's show or being running camera and the lights and the setup, I wound up in Birmingham, Alabama, and I had the opportunity to meet Bear Bryant and to go to his television show based on what I did with Bud's show, because the Bud Wilkinson show was his favorite show. He never missed a Bud. He had them shipped to him. He got them out of Texas, I think. And Bear Bryant watched Bud's show, and he loved it. So I got the opportunity to meet Bear and to relight his show and to do some changes simply because of being experienced with Bud. But Bud's show was really great. In about 1961, late 61, I guess it was, Mr. Gaylord decided to buy an independent TV station in Dallas-Fort Worth. The station's located physically in Fort Worth, but it served the Dallas-Fort Worth market, and they had an interest in being in that market. So in late 61, early 62, I was offered a position, a stage manager's position at the station, and I moved from Channel 4, and we moved to Dallas-Fort Worth and moved to Fort Worth. As you know, in 1963, the president came to visit Fort Worth, Dallas, and in November. We were hired as an independent to cover his Fort Worth appearance. We were simply to go in and cover him speaking at the Texas Hotel to the Greater Chamber of Commerce of Fort Worth, and he would come in and then leave and go to Dallas, where he was to speak at the Furniture Mart in Dallas. We set up and was at the hotel for the president, and we televised it. We taped it. We had a mobile unit that had a very sophisticated tape system on it, and we had our own power generator, and we were hired to do that. So the president came. I was 6 feet away from the president and Mrs. Kennedy. They were absolutely beautiful people. I was so impressed. And having seen them that close, and that image is burned into my brain. He spoke to them. He came in. It went off without a hitch. They got into their limo, went out to Carswell Air Force Base, picked up their plane, and flew over to Dallas, and we closed out. We had broken down all the equipment, and now it's getting close to noon, and we had stopped at a cafeteria to have lunch before we went back to the station. And somewhere as we started our lunch, it must have been 12:30 or 1 in that area, there is an emergency phone call for our engineer, and this is highly unusual. We didn't have cell phones, but they knew where we were because we called the station to tell them where we were at. Well, they called, and the engineer stopped and went to the telephone. He came back with his face is pale, and he said, "Forget your lunch, get out of here, get to the unit. We're going to Dallas. Somebody has taken a shot at the president, and we are on our way." We're all upset. We get to the truck. We're going to Dallas. We're not sure where we're going. Finally, we have a two-way communication, and we are told that we will meet our newsman at Parkland Hospital because that's where we need to go. The president has been taken to Parkland Hospital. Not once were we thinking about it being as hideous as it turned out to be. We thought this was just a precaution that he was there, and we will go over. And anyway, long story short, we get off the mobile unit. I'm carrying a camera. I was a lot healthier then, and we had it live. We went into the hospital, into the emergency room, and we put the camera on a tripod, and our news guy was there, and this door, and all of this stuff is happening. And we walked by as we were carrying the camera. At the emergency, there was the limousine that the president was in, and there's nobody around it. So I thought this was rather odd. So we go in, and the doctor comes out and says who he is, and the first thing he says is the president has died. We had not been given any information that they said he took a shot at him. We didn't know he was hit, let alone how bad it was, and that Governor Connolly had taken a bullet and was in surgery. All of this, and it was more than I could consume. The president I just was there. I just saw him, and now he's gone. And Governor Connolly's in critical condition in surgery. And with that, he closes. The news guy closes off, and they say, "Get your camera over to wherever this room where the governor is going to be held as soon as he gets out of surgery." And we started on a watch then, left our camera. I go out of the emergency room to run back to the mobile unit, and I go by the limo, and I wish I hadn't seen it. It was an awful experience, and I turn around, there is Mrs. Kennedy. She's being escorted to another car, and she shows all the signs of what happened in that limo. She had not taken anything off, not washed. So she went to the limo, I went back in, and for the next 40 hours, we sent video around the world. When, again, going back to Parkland Hospital, when we were there, it was obvious that we were the only television station there to do this live tape coverage of what was happening. The other stations had their equipment in place at Parkland, at the Furniture Mart, and they were unable to get their equipment out of there in time to be there for the doctors to make this announcement about the president. So our video was being fed to literally every station that wanted it across the country. As an independent, we didn't have a network obligation, so we fed anyone that wanted it, and every TV station was grabbing anything they could to get more information about what was going on. So we really did get ourselves a terrific position there, unbeknownst to us, and we wondered why, and then we realized later that the other TV stations just simply couldn't respond physically. A couple of days later, we were asked to go to the county jail. We were going to get the first interview with Lee Harvey Oswald. And they were going to bring him from the city jail to the county jail. We were going to meet them in jail. So we went to the county jail. We had our TV station, and we were going to feed CBS and ABC. The NBC affiliate had their camera and camera guy there. We had a news person that came in from California that was going to do the interview, and they were accepted. Everybody accepted him as the guy. So we got ourselves into the jail, the county jail. It was in maximum security. We were actually locked down in a cell that had 2 outside cells. So we had to be locked down twice in the cell. And the cell was about 8 feet square, big enough to handle the 2 cameras, the 2 camera guys, and the newsman. And then we would have Lee Harvey Oswald to ourselves, and we got 5 minutes with him. So we're all there, we're locked in, we're waiting. He's to be transferred from the city jail to the county jail. We have a small monitor. I'm watching the monitor, and they start to process. They're bringing Oswald out, and Jack Ruby shoots him. Our people in the truck are busy doing other things. They're not noticing what's going on, and I'm looking at the monitor, and I start screaming and whistling into my headset, and finally get an answer. What do you want? And I said, somebody has shot Lee Harvey Oswald. And he screams and looks at the monitor and said, oh my God, and what are we going to do? And you got to get out of there. We're hitting the bars and we're making the noise, trying to get their attention to get us out. And we're screaming. They finally start unlocking doors. We left our equipment, we left the cameras, we run out to the truck, and we're going to Parkland Hospital again. Okay, here's the same scenario. It was a few days earlier. I'm in the truck. We're putting a camera together. We're getting the generators running. We hit the ground running at emergency, the same place. We're parked in the same spot, and we were the closest to it, so we were the first truck to get there. We were the closest to the hospital. So again, I'm dragging the camera inside emergency. We go to the same door, put the camera on a tripod. The same doctor comes out and says Lee Harvey Oswald has died. And this is absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe it. The same scenario, that it happened again, and now it's Lee Harvey Oswald who's died. After coming back to Oklahoma City about 8 or 9 years ago to have another career, I found my WKY TV family of 50 plus years ago. I'm able to see old friends, and we're able to talk about these glorious days and years at WKY TV. And it truly was a one-of-a-kind TV station. And still yet today, we meet regularly, and we're able to share the experiences because someone has always got some great story from those days at Channel 4.